Elgato, they've finally done it. They took everything that people love about the Stream Deck and everything that people love about devices like the Beacon Mix and made a Stream Deck with dials. Jokes aside, Stream Deck Plus may well be able to replace 2 or even 3 devices on my desk, providing one very specific change happens, which we'll get to, but first, let's take a look at actually what Stream Deck Plus is. Up top, you have 8 different Stream Deck LCD keys that everybody knows and loves, except these are actually quite a bit larger and more spaced out than the keys found on both the Stream Deck or the Stream Deck XL. At the bottom, you have 4 endlessly rotating dials that can be clicked in and have those nice little tactile bumps for feedback as you rotate. Separating the keys and the dials is this touch-sensitive screen that Elgato is calling the touch strip. This displays the information about each of the dials beneath it, but is also capable of being pressed or swiped for additional functionality. At launch, Elgato has added dial functionality for all of their flagship software, so you can configure the dials to adjust the ISO, white balance, or pan tilt zoom of your webcam in Camera Hub, turn lights on and off or adjust their brightness or color temperature in Control Center, or probably most importantly, mute or adjust the levels for any of your audio inputs or outputs in Wave Link. They've also launched a new plugin through the Stream Deck software called Volume Controller that lets Windows users, not surprisingly, control the volumes of individual applications. This is pretty smart as you can set a profile that will automatically populate the dials with any apps that are currently playing audio. Similar to the previous Stream Decks, you're not just limited to these 8 buttons or 4 dials. You can have endless pages that can each have different functionality for the buttons and for the dials. Swiping left or right on the touch strip navigates through the Stream Deck pages that you've set up, effectively giving you as many buttons or dials as you could ever need. The dials can also make use of a feature called dial stacking, which allows you to add as many different actions as you want to a single dial. Clicking the dial inwards will then cycle between the actions added. A simple example of how I've used dial stacking so far is I've got a single dial controlling both my personal monitor mix as well as the audience stream mix for something like my music. I can adjust my personal mix volume in my headphones as well as the audience mix volume just by clicking in the dial. You can customize each section of the touch strip with your choice of icons and backgrounds so that each of the dial's controls are instantly recognizable. You can even choose a background for the full screen. Elgato has included a bunch of different options at launch, or you can even create and use one of your own designs. The amount of functionality that you can now get when you're combining the dial stacking with the touch strip now means that you have so much more space for your Stream Deck keys. I used to have to use 5 different Stream Deck buttons per light on my Stream Deck just to allow me to turn it on, adjust the brightness up and down, and then adjust the color temperature, warmer and cooler. Now all of that functionality can be added to just one dial and the touch strip, not to mention how much better it feels to adjust the brightness with just a turn of a dial versus having to press a button repeatedly. Software-wise, adding controls to the dials is as easy as it was to add buttons to the Stream Deck, simply dragging and dropping. There's even a new dials toggle which will show you all of the different available dial actions that you can add to your Stream Deck Plus. You can even set up the dials so both clockwise and anti-clockwise rotation, as well as the dial clicks, are mapped to specific hotkeys. This allows you to control things in basically any app, even if it doesn't have a Stream Deck plugin built already. Thinking things like adjusting the brush size in Photoshop, or zooming in and out of timelines in DaVinci Resolve, or even adjusting the playback speed on YouTube. Smart profile switching still works as it did with the other Stream Decks, but now with that added benefit of dials. So if you're editing in Premiere Pro, Stream Deck Plus can be set to show one profile of controls, and then if you swap to a streaming app like OBS, it can automatically swap to showing all of your Twitch controls instead. Right, let's swap to talking about Wave Link, because Elgato did something that I really never expected them to do. They've unlocked Wave Link to anyone with a Stream Deck Plus. That means that you no longer need to use an Elgato Wave device like Wave 1, Wave 3, Wave DX, or Wave XLR to make use of the excellent WaveLink software. You can use any microphone, be it USB or XLR, with WaveLink. If you're using an XLR mic, you can use any interface and still get all of that WaveLink functionality. So controlling all of your different audio channels, submixes, adding custom VST plugins, and that easy audio management in OBS is now available to any microphone as long as you're using Stream Deck Plus. That's something that pretty much everyone wants. Yes, you still need to buy an Elgato device, but not having to use an Elgato audio device and now getting the Wavelink functionality, that's a big win. Pricing wise, Stream Deck Plus costs $200, which I actually think is pretty reasonable. Elgato are still selling the Stream Deck XL, which has been out for over 3 years now, for $250 on their website. So for $50 less, yes, you're getting fewer buttons, but I actually think you're getting a much better device in terms of usability and control. In terms of negatives, over the few weeks that I've been using the device, there are a couple that I want to mention. Your fingers can quite easily accidentally adjust the adjacent knobs, which isn't ideal. I would have liked Elgato to have just spaced these out a tiny bit further to avoid this from happening. With a slightly wider device, they could have even added more Stream Deck keys to match the 15 that were on the original Stream Deck, but this would have understandably come at a higher price, which may have priced out many streamers. Maybe they're just saving that for the inevitable Stream Deck Plus XL or Stream Deck XL Plus, probably going to be a better name, but you know that device is coming out one day. The only other minor complaint is that the USB-C cable comes out at the top of the rear rather than the bottom or through the bottom of the stand. In my opinion, it just looks so much better to have cables flat and hidden behind the device, which is what both the Stream Deck and Stream Deck XL do. On the topic of the stand, it is removable just by removing these two screws here, but this cable positioning means that Stream Deck Plus can't even be laid flat, which again is going to be a negative for those that like to do so. So Stream Deck Plus inevitably combines a few different devices that I currently have on my desk, but what needs to happen for it to actually replace them? Well, similar to the Stream Deck, I think the real value for Stream Deck Plus is going to come when developers build third-party plugins that can make use of those controllable dials. If developers jump on board, think about all the amazing different things that you could control with those dials. Things like being able to adjust different parameters of the VST plugins in your audio chain, or controlling the individual volumes of your teammates on Discord, or even pitch changing your voice and adjusting the pitch with the dial. Then there's the adjusting of colors and brightness for things like Philips Hue lights, or customizing the length of different countdown timers for your stream. Really, the possibilities are endless, but it's going to be so reliant on the developers of these plugins to think that it's worth their time building out the functionality for these adjustable dials. But right now, on release, it's just the functions that Elgato have built for their own software. Hopefully this video has been helpful for you as a first look at Stream Deck Plus. Let me know your thoughts and any questions down in the comments. I'll jump in there and answer as many as I can, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace. They took everything that people love about the Stream Deck and everything that people love about devices like the Beacon Mix and, well, didn't think that was going to happen.